Yeah. This is Anthony in regards to the project for the CSC 110 course brought to you by Python. All right, so I built, as part of the course, I built used the turtle module to create a geometric pattern. Part of this presentation, we are going to go over the pattern itself, and then we'll move into helper functions, the main function, and then basically how I handled the alternating color. This pattern was rather unique and presented challenges in regards to doing that. So first, pattern review. This is the pattern that I was modeled. As you can see, this is 9 patterns, not 9 patterns, but 9 squares of 6 by 6 squares. All right, and let's move on. Helper functions. Now, I have a bunch of helper functions for this particular project. I've classified them by positioning, shapes, column maker, square maker, and line maker. So let's start with positioning. So I have four functions. The start project, it basically moves the turtle to the upper left corner of the window. The column reset positions the turtle. Once a column is made, it sets it up to start the next column. Each column is made of 6 squares stacked on top of each other. I chose to do columns rather than rows because I've done the rows already this quarter, and I kind of wanted to see if it was an additional challenge. I did start, I have the start new square. After the 6th column is completed, I had called this function that then sets it up to draw the first column of the next set of 6. And then once we have a line of 4 squares made of 6 by 6 squares, we then have a line of squares. Now this 4th option here is basically what resets it, so we can do a whole new line. We're going to start with the start project. Again, this is just positions it within the window, so we can start making the project without having to enlarge the window. I start by picking up the pen, moving backwards by 370, turning left by 90 degrees, moving forward by 290, and then we turn right by 90 and then drop the pen. All right, let's take a look here. Column reset. It takes the turtle and a size. So it's a positioning helper function that resets the turtle between columns and should end in the lower left. Let's see. And between it essentially, once the lower left, the turtle should complete a column on the lower left, the lower right corner of the column, and then basically from there, this picks up the pen, turns left to 90, moves forward by size, and then turns left by 90, and then moves forward by size times 6. Turns right and then drops the pen, so we can start drawing the next column. Now start a new square is yet another one. This means that we've drawn 6 columns and need to start drawing a new one. Once the 6th column is set up, we call this one. The turtle will turn left by 90 degrees, move forward by size, turn left by 90 degrees, move forward by size times 5. That's an important note. I'll come back to that in a second. And then turns right by 90. The reason that we move forward by 5 is because the way that my square is drawn on the first column, it starts by moving forward and then left. And so it comes back around to that point, so I can't move up to 6, otherwise my entire column starts 1 square too high. Here we have line of square reset that takes t and size. Now this basically picks up, turns right by 90, and then moves forward by size times 23. That's an important note. I'll come back to it. Then it will turn left, move forward by size, and then left again. So basically what it does is that when the final column is made, the turtle is on the lower left side of the column, which is why we don't need to move size by 24. And then essentially it moves, turns left, goes forward by 5, and then turns over so it's facing the right-hand side of the screen. Helper functions, shapes. The entire thing is just made up of shapes. There's two basic shapes, squares as evidenced here of the outer outline, and then the right triangle. I have 4 functions that draw squares. The helper function square, the helper function for triangle, but I also have 2 special functions that draw squares that are made up of triangles. Now I chose this image here because it demonstrates the 2 types of squares that are made up of triangles. One here, where basically the polar opposites, but the slant goes from the upper left to the lower right. And then on this other side, the mirror image, where the middle line cuts from the lower left to the upper right. And I have 2 functions that do that. So the name of those functions, draw square, rather straightforward, draw triangle. This parameter try is what makes that one a very versatile triangle. A helper function, that is, and it's a rather long function. We'll be talking about that in a moment. And then basically draw square of try1 and try2, that takes some color functions. Keep in mind that my square also takes 1 color function as well. Let's take a look at the square, shall we? It literally draws a square. It starts off by saying that the turtle's color is black, and then it fills in whatever color it was received, goes in here, starts the fill. For I in range of 4, T moves forward by size, turns left by 90, and the fill ends and it moves forward by size. Now, you may be wondering, why does it move forward by size? It's because the first square in the first column, it needs to move over, so it fills, so it sets it up for that next square. So, now the draw triangle, turtle size try. Try stands for one of 4 integers, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that would dictate what 90-degree triangle is drawn and where that 90-degree corner is. A 1, it's in the upper left. 2, it's in the lower right. 3, it's in the upper right. And then 4, it's in the lower left. Here I've got some variables. A equals size squared, B equals size squared, and C equals A plus B. All right, so draw a triangle. Essentially here, when 1 is received, it moves forward by size, turns left by 135, moves forward by the square root of C, and then it turns right by 135 again and moves forward by size. All 2, 3, and 4 are just all variations of that. And it's these next couple of functions here that make that a little more sense of why I did it that way. I've got 2 final helpers that do shapes. They draw squares of triangles, the T1 and then the T2. So drawing square of triangle 1. Here, I'm just going to skip the doc string and talk about the code itself. We immediately start by the color black, C1. That means that the top square will be whatever is received in this first section here. C1 as part of the parameter. And then we will begin fill, draw the triangle 1 with try 1 and fill. We'll set up and then start the color for 2 and begin fill. And then we'll draw a triangle with the try of 2 parameter, and then we will end. And then we will Oop. And then we will move left by 45. It does not want me to go in that corner, I'm sorry. So then on try 2, basically the same thing. We start by the color and fill, and then we feed in what triangle we want it to draw. It draws it, we stop filling. We do some additional positioning. Then we start the fill again, dictate the color of C2, which was the second parameter. And then we draw the triangle and we end the fill. And then we also turn right by 45, and that just adjusts the turtle just right so that we can start moving by 90 degrees after that and still have it line up with the rest of the pattern. Now, additional helper functions, I have 6 more. That's right, 6. So, and these all make columns. Column 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I cleverly named them draw column 1, draw column 2, draw column 3, 4, and 5, and 6. They take the turtle, the size, a parameter of color 1, and a parameter of color 2, which gets fed into the helper functions. Now, column 1 of the docstring is basically all the same, except depending on the color, this may change. All of the functions have C1 and C2. I will not have them in the slides for the next 5 draw columns, just to save room. But essentially here, we draw a square, feeding in whatever was the first color parameter here. And then the top function, that was one thing I did forget to mention about the square function. So this is a try1 square. Whatever triangle is on top is what receives the first color parameter. And the second parameter gets fed up to the bottom. And then, so we draw the square, we position, so we can start drawing triangle 1. And then once triangle 1 is drawn, we position again, just by turning, starting to draw it, and then we position again so we can draw the try 2. We turn left so we can draw another try 2. And then over here we finish the function because I didn't have enough room on the slide. We do another position and then just complete a square. All right, so then on column 2, we start by a triangle 2. And then we just draw a square. Notice that there was no positioning necessary for that one. But then we have to position, so from the square to draw the try 1, position again to draw try 2, position so that we can draw the square, and then position again so that we can draw that final try 2. And then at the end here, I do have some final positioning, just so that we can move set up the function that would be called after this to reset the column, so it sets up appropriately for number 3. Now for number 3, I really enjoyed writing this one. It was the easiest one to do. We start by drawing a try 2. We position for another try 1. We start with a try 1. We have to turn so that we can do another try 1. 2 squares, which with no positioning in between the try 1, the top square here or the second square. It was great. Fastest one I had to write. And then we do some positioning here on the square so that we can draw this try 2. And then we also have to turn accordingly so that we can draw this other try 2. Now, it got a little bit longer, again, for code, but we start with the try 2. We have turn left so we can draw another try 2. We have to do some positioning to draw these 2 squares, but in between the squares, no positioning. And then try 1. We had to turn for from the square to draw this, and then we had to turn again to draw try 2. And then we positioned it to set it up for the function. And then notice here that where we go from the try 1 and having to position accordingly, and then we have the triangle 2 up at the top. that proved, that's why I had to end with some minor positioning at the end. It was just a weird setup with how I have the Try-2 being built over here in the upper right and then moving down. It was a fun little issue I had to work with. But essentially, we start here with the Try-2. I draw the square, move into a Try-2 again with some additional positioning, which did require some very weird maneuvering for this corner to transition the Try-2 into the Try-1 here. It looks funny when you build it, and then we have to just, there we were able to just go directly into the square, turn left, and then we drew the Try-1. One more column. I hope you're still with me. Here we are, basically, I had to turn right, just with how columns were, and then here I have this square that starts here. Because I start in the lower left corner of the square, I had to do some strange positioning for this one and start moving here at the beginning just to make sure that column 6 always starts in this lower right hand part. Otherwise it starts just a square too high. But we draw the square, we draw a Try-2, we turn in position for another Try-2, we do some additional positioning here for the Try-1, and then another positioning for the Try-1, and then we draw a square. And that completes an entire square of columns. Now, I hope you're still with me because we have more helper functions. We make square out of columns, but this one literally just goes through and does exactly what I just walked you through. Not much to go into. It takes the turtle, the size, and color 1 and color 2. Now, here I have a line of squares. Draw a line of squares, takes the turtle, size, color 1, color 2. For I in range of 4, if I is less than 3, we draw the square of columns, and then we start a new square, and this is a positioning function here, else, because if it hits number 3, it's our 4th square. We don't need to position for the next one. Well, this entire thing draws a 4x4 square. And the main function to rule them all, but before we go into that, I'm just going to go ahead and start the example. Nope. So this is the one I actually called that starts moving everything. Remember the first positioning function I was talking about? Here's where we finally actually call it in the code. For I in range of 4, if I is less than 3, draw a new line of squares here. And then here we finally have our line of square resets. And then in the third iteration of this for loop, we simply draw the line of squares. All right, so I wanted to talk about alternating colors because this pattern presented some things. I know that there was a hint about a modulus, but I couldn't find a way to make a modulus work for this, and I would love some input on this. And I just want to call out the color patterns here. Now, these first shapes are everything here. And then I've got the colors written out too, because I've got blue, blue, red, red, blue, red, sorry, blue, blue, red, red, blue, blue. That was column 1. Now I have these written out over here on the left for a reason. Let's take a look at column 2. Blue, red, blue, blue, red, red, blue, blue, red, blue. Okay, well, let's take a look at third column. Red, blue, blue, red, 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 blue, blue, red. And remember, I set it up to where the top triangle was always the first one to receive fill and the first one to be drawn. And then I guess I could have found a way, because 4, 5, and 6 are just mirror images of 3, 2, 1 respectively. I honestly have no idea how to do this with the modulus. Even if I was going to do lines, I would still run into the same issue. Now, alternating colors. I wanted to talk more specifically about how I did it inside of the draw columns. And now with the draw square, I believe I took this from column 1, I think, but no, I didn't, because I didn't do any positioning at the start of column 1. But basically I fed in the first color here, since it's this must be column 6. But then on try 2, we can see here that I fed in the first color blue and then red. Although for the example I have running in the background now, I have blue and orange. But then on the second one, I fed through red first and then blue. As well down here, I've got these 2 tries here. These 2 try 1s. First one was C1, C2, and then second one was C2, C1, and then C1 down here on this bottom square. That was the only way I could see it working, and manually fed it through all the way from the main one, or the main function that rules them all. Let's go ahead and take a quick look here. And here we have the final projects. And if we wanted to, let's go ahead and see it run through a couple squares here. See, right down here at the bottom, I have the main function to rule them all, as well as some of the stuff I have commented out. And we'll basically let it run for 1 line, just so you can see it just work, even though I know you'll have the code and you can watch it work yourself. But yeah. And we are at the end of the 3rd square. We are starting the 4th one now. And there we go, 4 squares, and we're starting the next one. All right, thank you. Have a good one.